Welcome to Weekly Western Azerbaijan program. I'm Ulviya Zulfugar, the director of the Western Azerbaijan television. Today we're having a very special guest, Mr. Paulo von Schirach, president of Global Policy Institute of the USA and the professor of political science and international relations of Bay Atlantic University in the United States. So, welcome to our studio, Mr. Paulo von Schirach.
Thank you. Call me Paulo.
Only Paulo. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Paulo. How are you doing? Welcome to Azerbaijan again. We know that you are in Azerbaijan since 18th of July. So what brought you here? I know that you have participated in the second Global Shusha Forum. And first, what are your impressions about this forum and in general Azerbaijan?
Well, I mean, I was very impressed. So again, I thank the government of Azerbaijan for its kind invitation. So last year, it was my first visit to your country, and it was really a discovery for me. I have to admit, I didn't know enough about Azerbaijan, so I had a little bit of an education about the country and, of course, the challenges and the issues. So Shusha Forum last year and this year, I think these are great opportunities to discuss very, very important issues. Again, these things are not going to be resolved in one meeting, but the fact that the government had the opportunity to convene media experts, participants, journalists, representatives of TV networks, of publication from many continents. There were people from Africa, people from Central Asia, people from Europe. I came from the United States. Somebody came from Israel, and Hungary, and I don't know how many other countries. Pakistan,
Really global.
Pretty global. And to discuss this year, the theme was a critical one for media, which is misinformation and disinformation. And so, how do responsible media outlets combat disinformation? How does the general public sift through a variety of information? Now, everybody has the world at their fingertips with just their smartphone, but there's a lot of stuff. Which one is good, which one is bad, in terms of truthfulness. Now, opinions is another matter, but facts are facts. So if facts are invented, well, then we have a very serious problem, because if people make their opinions on the basis of facts that are not real or that are completely distorted, well, then you don't know what's going on, and your view and understanding of events and circumstances is distorted. So my personal contribution was to be part of a panel on artificial intelligence, which is really the newest thing, which is both good and bad. Artificial intelligence can do enormously good things for the economy, streamlining an enormous amount of data to discover patterns and things, and it will certainly make, certain operations a lot easier. Of course, some are worried also in the media world that artificial intelligence may replace people. That's a different sort of problem, which I'm not quite sure how it will be addressed. But also, artificial intelligence makes it extremely easy to manufacture out of nothing false information.
It's like a newsread.
Yeah, and so it can, and it can be very credible. I mean, almost, I would say that a child can do it at almost zero cost, to create an entire story or a false interview. You can take the video of a politician or somebody and make them say whatever you want. And it looks real because you have their voice. And people say, oh, is that true? Is that not true? And that's really scary, because at the moment, I'm afraid to say, we don't have a system, an effective system to filter. When you see information, to say, okay, is this AI or is this real? We don't know how to do that yet. And the scary part...
It's called deepfake program, I
think. Yes. And that artificial intelligence is getting better every day because machine learning. The machine learns on its own because it sifts through tons and tons and tons of data, and it gets more sophisticated, and it gets more, more credible. So the challenge for legitimate media around the world, whether it's in Azerbaijan or in Brazil, is to respond to this challenge. I'm afraid it's not that we, in our modest effort at Shusha, say, okay, now we know. this is how we're going to do. But at the because it's impossible so far, but at the very least, it was an opportunity to raise awareness, to let everybody know there is a problem, and please think about it. Which, even if that's all we did, I think it was very useful. And again, also we were very fortunate to have the President of Azerbaijan, Mr. Aliyev, to how can I say, be with us at the very beginning of the forum. He was very generous with his time and responded, nonstop for several hours to questions, completely unscripted, from the audience. They were all media specialists. So that was a great honor for us to have him spend so much time with us. And then there were other, important government officials. So I think all in all, I think it was very productive. Also gave me an opportunity to see, since I was there a year before, how much reconstruction has taken place in Shusha itself and in the region around, which shows the commitment by the government to make Karabakh, livable. Because unfortunately, I know because I've seen it before, but the world doesn't know how the place was completely destroyed. There's almost no houses, nothing standing. And that, unfortunately, this was the legacy of, 20 years plus of Armenian occupation, with all the issues that also, derive from it, of refugees who had to leave their homes and everything behind during the Armenian occupation. But the reconstruction was incredible. We went through this tunnel, from Fuzuli Airport, going on our way to Shusha. That didn't exist last year. It wasn't done. And it was many, many kilometers, which makes the trip shorter and easier. So these are some things that I could see with my own eyes in terms of the progress that has been done. And a lot more is obviously, this is going to be a long process, but there's a very, how can I say, a great deal of commitment, it seems to me, on the part of everybody, including friendly governments that I've seen. Okay, they donated, some government donated a school, donated a hospital or something, to contribute in some fashion, in solidarity with Azerbaijan, to the reconstruction of Karabakh. So that was really, really interesting.
Mr. Paolo, you talk about the Mr. President Ilham Aliyev's answering all the questions during 3 hours. Yes, we witnessed that he answered many questions regarding to the policy in the region, in the world, etc. And I would like to thank you to touching upon the issue of Western Azerbaijanis. I remember our interview with you.
Of course, it was our pleasure to have you. Yes.
Thank you very much for this again. And so we saw you asking question also. What was the question about? What kind of answer did you get?
Well, I mean, many questions, this is no surprise, were about COP29, of course, because as everybody knows, not just in Azerbaijan, but really across the world, Baku will be the venue for this very, very important event, which focuses on this crisis that we, not just the region of Azerbaijan, Europe, it's the world. We're facing this problem of man-made alterations in the atmosphere that we all share, and that causes, without getting too technical, the trapping of greenhouse gases, which means the atmosphere is becoming warmer, and hot atmosphere may, or indeed will, lead eventually to what is called climate change. And so it's a really difficult challenge, it seems to me, and we discussed that in Shusha, also with the president. In fact, that was my question, to see what is the wisest course of action, which is not an easy topic, going forward. We know that a great deal of progress has been made on renewable energy, solar, wind, hydro. Also nuclear energy is considered renewable, in order to advance on the plan to, quote, decarbonize the world. Great. However, realistically, and I think that's the impression that I got from the president and also from the, the coordinator for COP29, the member of parliament, Mrs. Arpadarai, who was there also participating in the meeting, that realistically we will have both for quite some time. Conventional energy, that is oil and gas, and renewables. How do you manage this balance, and what is the wisest course of action? If we say, oh, let's abolish carbon energy because it's bad, well, then what are we going to do? Use candles? I mean, everybody goes on a bicycle, no airplanes, no cars,
Impossible.
it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Because with all the bad things that carbon-based energy brings, it's also economic progress and lifting people out of poverty and allowing them to have a decent life. And if you ask somebody, say, what is your biggest, in a poor village in Africa or in India, say, are you really concerned about global warming? No, they would say, I'm concerned about eating tonight, having a meal, having shelter, having, cool in the home in the summer and warm in the winter, and medical care, school for my children.
And they're right.
That's what people care for. That's their number one priority. Sure. But if you say, oh, well, but if you use, gasoline or whatever, it's going to warm the planet, and eventually, they will say, yeah, but this is my problem today. And of course, we have to be, and I guess leaders, including your president, have to be mindful of today's problem, but also have a strategy for the future. And in this, I think Azerbaijan can lead the way because, as everybody knows, Azerbaijan is a significant producer of oil and gas, but also committed to invest large amounts of resources in renewable energy. And I think that's a very interesting case study, if you wish. My country, the United States of America, which is much bigger, but a huge consumer of energy, probably per capita the largest in the world. But we're also struggling with the same issues because we have both oil and gas and also major commitments to invest in renewable energy. I think that it will be a challenge, but the fact that Azerbaijan will convene this with this meeting and will be the venue for COP29, it's a great opportunity to show leadership, all right? And also, as the president said in Shusha, Azerbaijan enjoys the rather unique position of being a credible bridge between the global north and the global south. Exactly. Having good relations with developing countries as a non-aligned country, but also being, very well connected with say, the...
And Azerbaijan has a peaceful message with this COP29 to the world.
Exactly, to see that, that this should not divide us, should unite us, to try to find common ground, and to see how we can advance the cause of defending the planet, which certainly, it's our home. We all live here, planet Earth, whether we are in Azerbaijan or in Bolivia or in Uzbekistan or Japan. This is one world.
Yeah.
We're here, all of us. We're all human beings sharing the Earth. And so hopefully we're not going to destroy it, because otherwise we have no place to go.
We are destroying our home.
This is it. Then you don't burn your home down. That really is stupid, because yes. if you don't have other shelter. But these are big challenges, and the fact is also, without getting into too many details, much can be done in terms of adaptation to global warming. Some of it is already here. We already have, unfortunately, produced a lot of CO2 that is in the atmosphere, and that will continue to be there for quite some time. And that has triggered already changes in the climate. And so, aware of that, I think the good question and a wise way of addressing the problem is, okay, this is here. How do we adjust to these changes and make life possible even under these modified circumstances? I think much can be done when it comes to adaptation, because, say, for instance, people say, climate change causes drought in Africa, so crops die or don't grow very well. Mm-hmm. Well, scientists have developed and are developing drought-resistant seeds that make them much more resilient to grow even in adverse climate conditions, so that even though something has changed, unfortunately for the worse, you can still have productive agriculture. That's just one example.
Yes. Mr. Paolo, as a professional person and a professor of Global Policy Institute, the topic of Shusha Global Media for Misinformation. Azerbaijan faced it for 30 years during the occupation of Karabakh, and we also, as Western Azerbaijanis, faced this problem. And they made some media, bodies weren't there during 30 years. But when Azerbaijan liberated its territories, they looked from the side of other Armenian lobby and said, no, you are doing whatever you're doing, like it's not right, etc. So what's your opinion about this disinformation probe?
Well, it's unfortunate. I think it's a bit of laziness, quite frankly, on the part of media, which were willing to buy, if you wish, the one-sided look produced by the Armenian side, which portrayed themselves as victims. Yeah. Which is rather odd if you consider they were the occupiers, and so the occupiers say we're the victims. It would be like the other way around, right? And for some reason there is this idea that they pretty good at selling the idea of Azerbaijani oppression. At the time it was said that these poor people, these Armenians were there, and the Azeri government had put like a ring around them, that they were starving, that there was no food, and
they were
nothing.
In Azerbaijani Republic, not we are surrounding them.
So yeah, and so when it was said, but wait a minute, the Azerbaijani government offered to bring in supplies and food, but they said, no, we don't want you because we want you only from Armenia. So this is
want our propaganda work.
That's right. And I have to say there is some elements which are cultural and xenophobic, saying, especially in the West, oh, the Armenians are Christian, the Azeris are Muslim, that this is some kind of a religious war.
It's nothing to do with
which
this.
Is really not. Really, it's a complete distortion. But it resonates with many people. And so saying, oh, we're defending Western civilization against these barbarians, who want to destroy a people, nice people who are... which is,
You saw churches in Baku, there is nothing to do with this.
Absolutely, and I've seen it. I mean, I had the opportunity to see basically illustrations of tolerance. Last year we were taken to visit, I'm sure you know this very well, what I think they're called the Mountain Jews, this rather significant community of Jews who've been here for hundreds of years. Sure. And they're there. They're not being persecuted, they're not killed, they're not discriminated against. And so that's an illustration of a rather, it seems to me, tolerant, open society that is not making minorities uncomfortable. And to the best of my knowledge, there are many ethnic Armenians still today in Azerbaijan. Whereas, as you know very well, and you explained it to us, to our audience in the US, the ethnic Azeris who used to be Armenians, unfortunately, were evicted. They were forcibly deported, and that is something like it never happened because nobody knows about it. I mean, you know about it, of course, and your community knows about it, and your government knows about it, but the world doesn't know. And that is, I think, a pity because, again, it creates a distorted picture of what really happened. And so it's important for completeness of the picture that one understands that. Again, I, as a complete outsider, I wish peace to everybody.
We do, also.
Really, to everybody. Armenians, Azeris.
And we want to return in a peaceful way.
Exactly. So let's not use any opportunity to, fan the flames and trying to create new animosity and new conflict. Peace should be at the order of the day. It is quite obvious that if the countries of the Caucasus can settle the old issues, there's a new way forward of cooperation, of regional development, which frankly should be a win-win situation. And I would include obviously the country of Georgia, your neighbor, here to the north, to be part of this process of creating new bridges, development, transportation hubs, trade, because that has to be the future. I mean, I don't really see that there's anything to be gained by anybody, particularly, I would say, the country of Armenia, which is, has its challenges in terms of its size, population, and economic resources. I think common sense would dictate that they would see value in peaceful integration going forward. I know it's going to be difficult, and I am the last person to give advice on this because I don't know the complexity of the issues, and therefore I would be very presumptuous of me to say do this, do that. But I think if there's a positive attitude to settle the old stuff, to have a final peace agreement, clearly demarcated borders agreed upon by the parties and recognized by the international community, that would be a huge step forward. To the best of my knowledge, negotiations are ongoing on these issues. I'm sure there's still, problems and glitches, but again, that's a matter of goodwill and trying to find, a mutually agreeable solution and settlement.
Mr. Pala, I had an honor, as I mentioned before, to be on the online webinar with you and talk about Western Azerbaijan community, Western Azerbaijanis. I'd like to know your feedback. Like, what's your opinion about this issue? Western Azerbaijanis, I already told you that we were deported 4 times during the last century, and which the world community is not so much aware. When we say that we want to go back in a peaceful way to our historical lands, they said it's a territorial claim, but how can it be territorial claim when we say it in a peaceful way and to be your citizen again? It's not a territorial claim.
It seems to me, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but international law recognizes the right of return in a voluntary. That is not like another deportation, so to speak, but if it's done in a voluntary basis and in a peaceful basis. I believe the same applies to the ethnic Armenians who were left in Karabakh.
Azerbaijan already suggested them to stay here, be my citizen, reintegrate to my society. They refused it, and according to Armenian law, they had to leave
because they were going to be killed, all of them. Yes, but to the best of my knowledge, your government has determined to say, okay, we know exactly who has what. We have a log of all properties, houses, who lived there, who didn't live there. And so the rightful owners, if there's a house or a business or something, or a piece of land, they have documentation to...
Some of them state.
To determine that and say, okay, you're welcome to come back as long as, which doesn't seem to be such a strange request, you recognize that you accept Azerbaijani sovereignty, that you would be certainly a welcome ethnic Armenian, you welcome to come back, but not having your own government. Okay, that doesn't exist in any country.
I wish we had the same suggestion from Armenian
Well,
government.
That's the thing. So on a reciprocity basis, I think it could be possible to achieve that. And for those Armenians, ethnic Armenians who want to go back to the part of Karabakh that they inhabited, that should be the way it is. And by the same token, reciprocity would indicate that all the ethnic Azerbaijani who were forcibly deported from their homes in what is today Armenia, they should be allowed peacefully to return to their homes, to their villages, to their whatever. Those who want to. Some may not want to because,
it's voluntary process, but most of them want.
If those who want should be allowed to do so peacefully.
They're still alive.
Accepting that this is not, quote, an invasion, okay?
Of course.
But it is civilians going peacefully to go back to the places where they were born and respecting Armenian sovereignty, so that they would be there as people of Azeri and heritage that would go back to their ancestral homes where they were for such a long time. And it seems to me this is not at all unreasonable, to the extent that it's done in full cooperation of the two governments. I really hope that this pending issue of the people of Western Azerbaijan, those who were ethnic Azerbaijani on Armenian territory, there should be a way, as your organization is trying to point out, for them peacefully to return to where they came from.
Yes. So they are afraid of Azerbaijan will do something more than, as you said, attack or something. But Azerbaijan lived with it 30 years. They attacked and they occupied our territories. They killed people there. We had internal displaced persons. So we lived with there. And if they are afraid of something, it's the result of the Armenian propaganda also. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Paolo, for coming to our studio, for being our guest. And thank you for your precious opinion that you shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We would be glad to see you again in Azerbaijan.
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this was Weekly Western Azerbaijan. I'm Ulviye Zulfugar, director of Western Azerbaijan TV, and we had a special guest today, Mr. Paolo von Schirach. I already introduced him at the beginning of the program. See you. Thank you for watching us.